Today I'll be comparing filming in 24, 30, and 60 frames a second. Now I have to do this in 3 separate videos because you can't show multiple frame rates within the same video. This particular video is shot in 30 frames a second, and I'll leave the link to the other 2 in the description box down below. So like I said before, if you create a video in a 30 frames a second timeline, then that video would be in 30 frames a second. No matter what you shot in with the camera, this video would be 30 frames. So I can't show 24 and 60 frames a second within this video because this video is shot in 30 frames a second. So with that being said, I filmed this video 3 times. Now there will be additional footage shot in 30 frames a second at the end of this video, so be sure to stay tuned to the end so you can check out that footage. Quick lesson on what frame rate is. Video is just a bunch of pictures shown to you fast enough that they all blur together and it looks like motion. So in this video is 30 frames a second, meaning that there are 30 pictures shown to you every second. Every second that passes by is just showing you 30 pictures in front of your face very fast, and it looks like I'm moving, but this actually is a bunch of pictures shown to you very fast. So why 30 frames a second? Well, there are 2 television standards in the world, and that is NTSC and PAL. Countries like America, we use NTSC, so 30 frames a second is the standard. This standard has a lot to do with the electrical current that we use here in this country and any other NTSC country. So without going into unnecessary detail, NTSC countries' electrical currents are at about 60 hertz, and in PAL countries, the electrical current is at about 50 hertz. So naturally, the lowest optimal frame rate to fit within 60 hertz is 30 frames a second. And just like in the PAL countries is 50 hertz, so the natural lowest frame rate that fits in that is 25 frames a second. If you don't know how those 2 things correlate, basically a monitor or a TV in the NTSC country has a 60 hertz refresh rate, which means that the screen updates 60 times every second. So if you show a video that was shot in 30 frames a second on a monitor or screen that can refresh 60 times every second, the 30 frames that you're showing that video in divide evenly into the 60 times that that screen updates. So basically you're sending 30 individual pictures to that screen every second, and that screen is checking 60 times every second to see if anything has changed. Now as technology improves, we have monitors that have 120 hertz refresh rates, we have monitors that have 240 hertz refresh rates, but they all have the same thing in common. You can take 30 and divide it evenly among those monitors. So if the monitor is checking 120 times a second, well, all 30 of those frames are going to divide evenly into that 120. So the problem with shooting at 24 frames a second is that 24 does not divide evenly on the screen that's showing 60 hertz. And since most of the screens that we have show at 60 hertz, you kind of have a little hiccup because you have 24 frames trying to divide evenly over 60 hertz. So this video that you're watching right now, since it's shot in 30 frames a second, it should be very fluid on the screen that you're watching this video on. Now, does more fluid mean better? Not necessarily. If you look at the typical things that are shot at 30 frames a second, you'll notice that it's like news broadcasts, TV shows, soap operas, things like that, and those things have a distinct look to them. So if your goal was to get something that looked more cinematic and more like a movie, you wouldn't want to shoot in 30 frames a second because 30 frames a second gives you more of a look that you would see on a news broadcast or a TV show. So having a video that's more fluid doesn't necessarily mean it's better. It's just a different kind of experience. I would say that most YouTubers that cover camera related things most likely shoot at 24 frames a second. But then you have other YouTubers like MKBHD who shoots at 30 frames a second because he likes how fluid it looks. Well, MKBHD shoots more tech related videos and not necessarily cinematic style videos. So it fits his channel versus someone like Peter McKinnon where the videos are always cinematic. MKBHD wants a more fluid video that's more crisp and clean, and Peter McKinnon wants a video that has that nice cinematic motion blur. So as long as you understand when and where and how to use it and the effect that it has on the video, you can decide for yourself what you want to shoot in. And you can go check out my 24 frames a second video to see how that looks. And you can go check out the 60 frames a second video to see how that looks, because the 60 frames a second video is probably a much more dramatic look than this one is. You might not be able to necessarily tell the difference between 24 and 30, but 24 and 30 versus 60, there's definitely a difference. So I recommend you go check out that video for sure if you can't tell the difference between this video and the 24 frames a second video. So those clips are shot in 30 frames a second. So let me know what you thought about them down below in the description box. Give this video a like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I will see you guys in the next video.